The mining colony on Kepler 440b had been home to 30,000 Xanthari for over 20 years. The alien beings worked in the deep tunnels, pulling rare crystals from the planet's core that powered their empire's greatest ships. Families lived in the silver towers that rose from the rocky surface, their children playing in gardens under the artificial sky. Commander Heianwu stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the red sun grow brighter and more dangerous with each passing hour. The star was angry, throwing out massive waves of deadly energy that would cook anything living on the planet below. His orders were clear, but they still felt like poison in his throat. The hologram projector flickered to life in the colonies. Main hall, 30,000 faces looked up at him, hope shining in their large dark eyes. These were his people, engineers, teachers, miners, families, who had given their lives to serve the Empire. Now the Empire was about to abandon them. Citizens of mining colony KC-7749, Heianwu began, his voice steady despite the pain in his chest. Long-range sensors have detected a Class 7 solar flare approaching our position. The radiation levels will be fatal to all life on the planet within 6 days. A mother in the crowd held her child closer. An old miner removed his helmet, his weathered face showing confusion. He waited for news of rescue ships, of evacuation plans, of hope. The Imperial Council has reviewed the situation, Heianwu continued. The cost of evacuation would require 17% of our sector fleet's annual budget. The strategic value of this colony does not justify such an expense. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Elder Vashtai, the colony's leader, stepped forward. His legs shook as he walked, but his voice was strong. Commander, surely you cannot mean this. We have served the Empire faithfully. Our children were born under the Imperial flag. We are citizens, not numbers in a ledger. Heianwu closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his expression was like stone. The decision is final. The transport ships will depart within the hour. You have 6 days to prepare yourselves. But the evacuation ships, someone shouted from the crowd. Where are they? There are no evacuation ships, Heianwu replied. The Empire has calculated your worth and found it insufficient. I am sorry. The transmission ended, leaving the hall in terrible silence. Through the great windows they could see the Imperial warships rising into the sky, their blue engines painting lines of light against the dark. The ships grew smaller and smaller until they vanished into hyperspace. Leaving the colony alone with death approaching from the sky, Dr. Kethler, the chief engineer, was the first to move. He walked to the main control panel and began running diagnostics. The radiation shields will fail in 4 days, he announced. After that, we have perhaps 12 hours before the exposure becomes fatal. Panic began to spread through the crowd. People pushed toward the exits, calling for their families, shouting questions that had no answers. Some fell to their knees, praying to the old gods. Others stood frozen, unable to believe what they had heard. Elder Vashtai raised his arms for silence. We are Xanthari, he said, his voice carrying over the noise. We have survived the long dark when our sun dimmed for 10 years. We survived the plague of whispers that took half our homeworld. We survived the extinction of the third moon. We will face this with dignity. But even as he spoke the traditional words of courage, Vashtai knew they were empty. This time, there would be no miracle. The Empire had weighed their lives against the cost of saving them and found them wanting. In the days that followed, the colony tried to prepare. They gathered in the deepest tunnels, hoping the rock would provide some protection. They shared their food, told stories to the children, and pretended they were not afraid. But everyone knew the truth. The radiation was coming, and they were powerless to stop it. The lucky ones would die quickly when the shields failed. The others would linger for days, their bodies breaking down as the star's anger burned through them. There was no escape, no hope, no rescue coming. On the 4th day, the shields began to flicker. The colony's power grid, damaged by months of strain, started to fail. The air recyclers worked harder to clean the thickening atmosphere. The temperature controls struggled to keep the living spaces comfortable. Vashtai stood in his office, looking out at the red sun that had become their executioner. His people had been miners, engineers, and teachers. They had built this colony with their own hands, carved a home from lifeless rock. They had served the Empire faithfully, sent their children to fight in its wars, paid their taxes without complaint. Now they were expendable. The Empire had done the math and decided they were not worth saving. He touched the communication console one last time, sending a final message into the void. This is Elder Vashtai of Colony KC-7749. If anyone receives this transmission, remember us. We lived. We served. We mattered. The message traveled through space, carrying the voices of the abandoned into the darkness. No one expected an answer. No one believed rescue would come. They were wrong. 6 months had passed since the Imperial ships disappeared into hyperspace. The colony on Kepler 44b was dying slowly, its people hanging onto life by the thinnest of threads. The radiation shields had failed weeks ago, and the survivors huddled in the deepest tunnels. Their crystalline skin dull and cracked from exposure, Captain Lee Junho stood on the bridge of the human exploration ship Dauntless, staring at the sensor readings with growing concern. His crew of 50 had been mapping this system for 3 weeks, looking for planets that might support human colonies. Earth's population was growing, and they needed new worlds to call home. Captain called. Navigator Kim Sora from her station. I'm picking up artificial structures on the 4th planet. Big ones. But the energy signatures are all wrong. Junho moved to her console, studying the data. The structures were clearly built by an advanced civilization, but they were running on emergency power. Worse, the planet was being bombarded by massive amounts of radiation from the local star. Any life signs? He asked. Faint ones, Sara replied. Whatever's down there, they're in serious trouble. Chief Engineer Park Min-ho looked up from his diagnostic screen. Captain, that radiation level would kill a human in hours. But these readings suggest the inhabitants have been exposed for months. Either they're incredibly tough, or they're dying very slowly. Junho frowned. Earth's star charts showed no intelligent life in this system. Either the charts were wrong, or something terrible had happened here. Take us closer, he ordered. But keep the shields at maximum. I want to know what's going on down there. As they approached the planet, the scope of the disaster became clear. The surface was scarred by radiation burns, and the alien structures showed signs of severe damage. But the life signs were still there. Weak, but persistent. Captain, Communications Officer Choi Young-mi announced, I'm receiving a transmission. It's definitely not human. Put it through the universal translator, Junho ordered. The bridge speakers crackled with static, then a voice emerged. Alien, but unmistakably desperate. Anyone who can hear this? ... Please. We are dying. ... Children are sick. Need help. The bridge fell silent. Junho felt his crew's eyes on him, waiting for orders. Standard procedure said they should report the discovery to Earth Command and wait for instructions. But the voice on the radio sounded like it didn't have time. To wait, Sora, plot a course for the surface, he decided. Minho, prep the medical bay and break out the radiation treatment gear, Young-mi. Try to establish better communication with whoever's down there. Sir, Sora said carefully, we don't know anything about these aliens. They could be hostile, could carry diseases we can't fight. Earth Command specifically said to avoid contact with unknown species. They're dying, Junho replied. Simply. That's all I need to know. The Dauntless descended through the planet's atmosphere, its hull groaning under the stress of the radiation field. As they approached the main colony complex, they could see figures moving slowly through the SC. Damaged corridors tall, graceful beings with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. Landing successful? Sara reported. The radiation is manageable with our shielding, but I don't know how these people have survived this long. The first face-to-face meeting took place in the colony's main airlock. Elder Vashtai approached. Slowly, his movements careful and painful. The human translation device struggled with his language, but the meaning came through clearly enough. You are not Zenthari, he said, wonder in his voice. You are something else. Something new. We're human, Junho replied through the translator. We picked up your distress signal. We're here to help. Vashti's large eyes widened. Help, but we are strangers to you. We have nothing to offer in return. Why would you risk your lives? For us? The question caught Junho off guard. In his mind, the answer was obvious. Because you need help, he said. Over the following days, the human crew worked tirelessly to save the alien colonists. Dr. Sarah Park, the ship's medical officer, discovered that human radiation treatment technology was surprisingly effective. On Xanthari physiology, engineer Minho worked with the colony's technical staff to repair their life support systems. The entire crew pitched in, sharing their food, their medicine, their hope. The Xanthari watched in amazement as these strange beings from an unknown world risked everything to help them. In their culture, such actions were almost unthinkable. Resources were precious, and survival was calculated based on logical analysis. The idea of helping strangers with no expectation of reward was completely foreign to them. Your people are very strange, Dr. Kethler told Minho, as they worked together to repair a damaged air recycler. In our civilization, we help family, then clan, then those who can help us in return. But you help us for nothing. Minho paused in his work, thinking about the question. Maybe that's what makes us human, he said finally. We help because it's the right thing to do. As the colony's systems came back online and the survivors began to recover, Vashti found himself asking the same question over and over. Who were these humans, and why had they come when even his own people had abandoned him? The answer would come soon enough, but not in the way anyone expected. 3 days after the humans arrived, the colony's long-range sensors detected something that made Elder Vashti's blood turn cold. 5 ships were approaching from deep space, their energy signatures unmistakably Xanthari, but wrong in a way that spoke of violence and greed. Pirates Vashti whispered to Captain Lee Junho as they stood in the colony's control room. Our own people, but cast out from civilization. They prey on the weak and the abandoned. The lead pirate ship established communication with the human vessel. The voice that came through the translator was cold and arrogant. Unknown ship, you are trespassing on our salvage rights. This colony was abandoned by the Empire. Everything here belongs to us now. Captain Junho activated the communication system, his voice steady and firm. This is Captain Lee Junho of the Earthship Dauntless. We are conducting rescue operations. For survivors, we have no interest in salvage, but we will not abandon these people. Harsh laughter echoed through the speakers. Humans. We have heard stories of your primitive species. You barely have the technology to leave your own star system. Withdraw now, or we will destroy you and take what we came for. Navigator Kim Sora looked up from her console, her face pale. Captain, their weapons are centuries ahead of ours. Our ship can't fight 5 heavy cruisers. Through the viewports, they could see the alien survivors they had been helping. Many were children, their crystalline skin finally beginning to heal under human medical care. Others were elderly too, weak to survive another catastrophe. All of them looked to the humans with hope in their eyes. We don't run away, Junho said quietly. Not from bullies and not when innocent people need our help. The pirate leader, who called himself Warlord Dekvar, sent one final message. You have 1 hour to evacuate your people and leave. After that, we will treat you as enemies and destroy you. Chief Engineer Park Min-ho was already working with Dr. Kethler and the colony's technical staff. The original defense systems are completely destroyed, he reported. But they have mining equipment down here, powerful stuff, with some modifications. Can you turn mining lasers into weapons? Junho asked. Give me 12 hours, and I'll turn this whole colony into a fortress. Minho replied with a grim smile. The humans and Xanthari worked through the night. Mining lasers were repositioned and rewired to fire upward at attacking ships. Excavation. Charges were turned into improvised bombs. Heavy machinery was moved to create barriers and defensive positions. Dr. Kethler worked alongside the human engineers, his movements growing stronger as hope returned to his people. In all my years, he told Minho, I have never seen anything like this. Your species fights for others as if they were your own family. Maybe they are, Minho replied as he connected power cables to a repurposed drilling laser. Maybe that's how we see it. When dawn came, the pirate ships descended from orbit like hungry predators, expected to find a defenseless colony and a primitive human ship. Instead, they found a prepared battlefield. The first attack came as energy beams lanced down from the pirate vessels, testing the colony's defenses. The humans had worked through the night to create a maze of fortified positions, turning every corridor into a potential trap. "They're not taking us seriously yet," observed Sergeant Han Borum, the ship's security chief. "They think we're just primitives with stolen technology." The real battle began when the pirates landed assault troops. Expecting quick victory, they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow the normal rules of warfare. The humans used tactics that the pirates had never seen before: improvised weapons, unexpected angles of attack, and a willingness to take personal risks that seemed almost insane. Captain Junho coordinated the defense from the colony's central hub, his voice calm over the communication system. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for people who have no one else to fight for them." The battle raged for hours. The pirates had better weapons and armor, but the humans had something the pirates didn't understand: absolute determination. They fought with mining tools when their rifles ran out of ammunition. They used their own bodies as shields to protect alien children they had never met before. Vashti found himself fighting alongside Sergeant Borum, his crystalline hands surprisingly steady as he operated a converted mining laser. "Why do you do this?" he asked during a brief pause in the fighting. "Why do you risk everything for strangers?" Borum smiled as she reloaded her weapon. "Because if we don't, who will?" The turning point came when the pirates tried to overwhelm the colony's central hub with a massive assault. They expected to find cowering civilians and exhausted defenders. Instead, they found humans and Zenthari fighting side by side, their combined determination creating something stronger than either species could achieve alone. As the pirate assault began to falter, their leader's voice crackled over the communication system. "You cannot win this fight, humans. We are your superiors in every way. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Was broadcast throughout the colony. "We're not your superiors or your inferiors. We're just people who refuse to let innocent beings die on our watch. And we're not surrendering." The siege was far from over, but something had changed. The galaxy was about to learn what humans meant when they said no one gets left behind. The battle had been raging for 6 hours when Warlord Thekvar made his fatal mistake. Confident that his superior technology would eventually crush the human resistance, he decided to lead a final assault personally. His elite warriors, armed with the finest weapons in the galaxy, was prepared to storm the colony's central hub. Sergeant Han Borum crouched behind a barricade made from mining equipment, rifle nearly empty. Beside her, Dr. Kethler operated a converted drilling laser, his crystalline fingers moving with surprising skill across the controls. Around them, the makeshift fortress was crumbling under the constant pirate assault. "They're massing for a final push," Borum reported into her communicator. "I count at least 50 elite troops moving toward the central hub." Captain Lee Junho's voice crackled back through the static. "All units prepare for Plan Omega. Minho, are you ready?" In the colony's power core, Chief Engineer Park Minho worked frantically alongside Elder Vashti. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he connected the final cables to the jury-rig system they had built. "The electromagnetic pulse will knock out all their ships," he explained to the alien engineer. "But it will also destroy our life support systems. We'll have maybe an hour before the air becomes poisonous." "Then we must make that hour count," Vashti replied, his voice steady despite the explosions echoing through the complex. The pirate assault began with a devastating barrage of energy weapons. The corridor walls glowed red-hot as the attackers advanced, confident that nothing could stop them now. They had fought across a dozen worlds, crushed countless enemies, and never met a force they couldn't defeat. But they had never fought humans before. As the elite warriors pushed deeper into the colony, they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow the normal rules of warfare. The humans didn't retreat when outgunned. They didn't surrender when surrounded. Instead, they fought with improvised weapons and desperate courage. Turning every room into a battlefield, Captain Junho met the pirate commander in the colony's main chamber. That Gavar was a massive figure, his armor gleaming with the trophies of 100 victories. His weapon could cut through steel, and his experience in battle was measured in centuries. "You have fought well, Primitive," Dekvar said, his voice filled with condescending respect. "But this ends now. You are brave, but bravery cannot defeat superior technology and training." Junho stepped forward, his uniform torn and bloodied, but his stance unwavering. "You're right about one thing," he replied. "This does end now." The final battle was fought hand-to-hand in the colony's central chamber. Human determination met pirate arrogance, and the outcome surprised everyone. The humans fought not just with weapons, but with something the pirates had never encountered: the absolute refusal to give up. Sergeant Bioram tackled a pirate warrior twice her size. Using her smaller frame to get inside his guard, Dr. Kethler abandoned his laser to help a wounded human soldier, his gentle hands surprisingly effective with a makeshift club. Even the colony's children joined the fight, throwing rocks and creating distractions that allowed the defenders to gain crucial advantages. The turning point came when Captain Junho faced Warlord Dekvar in single combat. The pirate leader had every advantage: better weapons, superior armor, centuries of experience. But Junho had something the warlord couldn't understand. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. "You fight well for a primitive," Dekvar admitted as their weapons clashed. "But you cannot win. I have conquered entire star systems. I have destroyed fleets. What are you compared to that?" "I'm someone who doesn't abandon people," Junho replied, pressing his attack. "I'm someone who believes that every life matters." Battle raged across the chamber as human and alien defenders fought side by side. The pirates, despite their superior equipment, found themselves slowly being pushed back. They were used to fighting for profit and glory, but the humans were fighting for something much more powerful: the lives of innocent people they had chosen to protect. When the electromagnetic pulse finally triggered, it lit up the sky like a second sun. The pirate ships in orbit suddenly went dark, their systems destroyed by the massive energy discharge.
Oh.
On the planet's surface, surviving pirates found themselves cut off from their escape route, but victory came at a terrible cost. 7 human crew members lay dead among the wreckage, their bodies testament to the price of standing up to bullies. Dozens of Zenthari defenders had also fallen, their crystalline skin cracked and dim. Captain Junho stood over the defeated Warlord Dekvar, his weapon pointed at the pirate leader's chest. The alien looked up at him with something that might have been respect. "You have won this battle, human," Dekvar said. "But you have also doomed yourselves. Word will spread of what happened here. Other pirates will come, larger fleets, more dangerous enemies. You cannot save everyone." Junho helped the wounded pirate to his feet, his action surprising everyone in the chamber. "Maybe not," he admitted.
Ah!
"But we can try, and that's what makes us human." As the smoke cleared and the survivors began to count their losses, one thing had become clear: the galaxy would never be the same. The humans had arrived with fire and steel, but more importantly, they had brought something the galaxy had almost forgotten: hope. 6 months after the Battle of KC 7749, the story had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the darkest corners of space, in slave markets and refugee camps, in the forgotten colonies of a dozen worlds, beings whispered about the humans, who had come with fire and steel to save strangers. Ambassador Yunsugin stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. The great chamber was filled with representatives from every major civilization, their various forms creating a rainbow of alien life. But today, all eyes were on the small human woman who had requested to address the assembly. Honored members of the council, Sujin began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I come before you not as a conqueror or a traitor, but as a representative of humanity. We seek recognition as a galactic civilization." The hegemony representative, a tall being with skin like polished metal, rose to speak. The humans have violated established protocols by interfering in internal Xanthari affairs. Their actions at KC-7749, while dramatic, represent a dangerous precedent. What happens when every primitive species decides to play hero? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. For thousands of years, the galaxy had operated on simple rules. The strong survived, the weak were abandoned, and interference in other species' affairs was forbidden. The humans had broken those rules. But then Elder Vashti stepped forward. The Xanthari leader had traveled across the galaxy to be here. His crystalline skin now fully healed, but bearing the permanent scars of radiation exposure. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had seen both the worst and best of what the galaxy could offer. "Honored representatives," he said, "I have lived for 300 years. I have seen empires rise and fall, civilizations bloom and wither. I have watched species calculate the value of life and find it wanting. But I have never seen what I witnessed in that dying colony." The chamber fell silent as he continued. The humans asked for nothing in return. They gained no territory, no resources, no strategic advantage. They saved us because we were alive, and that was enough for them. They fought not for profit or glory, but for the simple idea that no one should die alone and forgotten. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Representatives spoke of tradition, of the natural order, of the dangers of setting precedents. That could destabilize galactic civilization. But underneath their words was fear. Fear of what it meant that someone had changed the rules. The vote, when it finally came, was not just about recognizing humanity. It was about deciding what kind of galaxy they wanted to live in. When the results were announced, humanity was not only recognized as a full galactic civilization, but invited to establish something unprecedented. The Refugee Protection Service, Admiral Lee Junho, stood on the bridge of the indomitable humanity's first purpose-built rescue vessel. The ship was larger than the old Dauntless, equipped with advanced medical facilities, defensive systems, and most importantly, the largest cargo bay in the fleet for evacuating refugees. His crew was no longer purely human. Commander Kim Soro worked alongside Xanthari navigators who understood the hidden routes through pirate-controlled space. Former pirates who had switched sides after witnessing the battle served as tactical advisors. Refugees from a dozen worlds had found new purpose as doctors, engineers, and fighters in the service of saving others. Admiral, reported Dr. Kethler, now serving as the ship's chief science officer. "We're receiving multiple distress signals from the Outer Rim. 3 colonies under attack, 2 worlds facing natural disasters, and at least 5 refugee ships requesting escort through dangerous space." Junho smiled, the same determined expression he had worn during the siege of KC-7749. "Plot courses for all of them. We'll start with the most urgent and work our way through the list." "Sir," called out Communications Officer Choi Youngmi, "I'm also receiving a priority transmission from the Vega system. Local authorities have declared a colony ship attack economically non-viable for rescue operations." Sounds familiar? The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had heard those words before on a dying world 6 months ago, the words that meant civilized people had calculated the value of lives and found them insufficient. "Set course for Vega," Junho ordered. "Maximum speed." As the Indomitable jumped to hyperspace, its message was already spreading across the galaxy through channels, both official and hidden. The message was simple but revolutionary. Humanity had arrived, and they brought with them a promise that no one would be left behind. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change. Abandoned colonies sent desperate messages into space, hoping that strange ships with human crews would answer. Pirates found their raids interrupted by rescue fleets that fought with impossible courage. Slave markets were disrupted by beings who believed that freedom was worth any price. The major powers complained about the disruption to established order. They spoke of the danger of encouraging primitive species to think they could challenge the natural hierarchy. But their words rang hollow when broadcast alongside footage of human ships evacuating refugee children, of mixed crews fighting against impossible odds, of beings who had given up hope finding reasons to live again. The age of abandonment was ending. The age of humanity and all who stood with them had begun. Fire and steel had come to the galaxy, but more importantly, hope had returned to the stars.